Welcome to the Week 11 overview. This week we'll be discussing biomanufacturing on a global scale. As stated in the ICH Q8 document, the aim of the pharmaceutical development is to design a quality product and its manufacturing process to consistently deliver the intended performance of the product. In order to assure manufacturing success, the product needs to be produced in the appropriate quantity, at the appropriate quality, it has to be produced on schedule, and it must be cost-effective. In terms of manufacturing biopharmaceuticals, this is not a simple process. Even in terms of thinking of the sizes of these different components, if you compare the biomanufacture of aspirin, which is a small 21-atom molecule, compared to a large biopharmaceutical such as Herceptin, which has 25,000 atoms or a molecular weight of over 150,000, it would be like comparing the size of a bicycle to a G6 business jet. So as we think of the business of biopharmaceuticals, what are the future trends? If one compares the current market and production of small molecule drugs versus biologics, in the current environment versus that which is predicted for 2020, currently, the production of small molecule drugs accounts for 57% of all biomanufacturing, but accounts for 95% of the current revenue. Currently, the production of biologics only accounts for about 5% of current revenues. However, by 2020, it is predicted that biologics will represent 80% of the biomanufacturing production, and it will represent about 50% of the revenues for biomanufacturing. Part of the rationale for the shift from small molecule drugs to the large molecule biologics are the higher success rates that are associated with large molecule drugs. In this diagram, we can see that for small molecule drugs, only about 2% of the drugs that are produced actually give positive results in preclinical trials and move on into the later phase 1 trials. In contrast, the large molecule drugs, or biologics, give a 12% success rate in preclinical testing. So you have a 6-fold higher success rate simply in a smaller number of drugs being produced. This success is in large part because the biologics, or large molecule drugs, are designed to target specific pathways and therefore enhance their therapeutic potential. Another consequence has been the number of patent filings for all drugs has been decreasing. However, the drop in small molecule drug patents has been more precipitous than that for biologics, such that currently biologics account for more than 60% of all drug patent filings. Another component leading to this explosion in the biologics market is the expiration of patents on these biologic drugs. This year, the total sales in monoclonal antibodies are expected to surpass $65 billion. And of the 9 leading biologic sales, they are all within 2 to 3 years of the expiration of their patents. This will allow other players to enter the market and compete with generics or biosimilars. What are the driving forces behind these future trends in biomanufacturing? Well, first, how do we maximize the production of our product while minimizing cost? Market segmentation. The uncertainty of product approvals with changing regulations. And globalization with the emergence of these developing markets. Just by examining research and development ranking in the various industrial sectors in the world, one can see the three primary industrial sectors are: number one are pharmaceuticals and biotechnology, number two, technology, hardware, and equipment, and number three, automotives and parts. Within the biologics and biotechnologies, the US and Europe are by far the leaders in these ranks. So how are we going to stay at the top of these markets? One aspect of biopharmaceutical manufacturing is employment. And employment within the U.S. biopharma manufacturing has remained stagnant since 2009. And for future trends, this is unlikely to change. What are the additional challenges for the future? Well, there is a high degree of pipeline attrition. As a result, it is essential to integrate pipeline planning into your manufacturing strategy, or planning for success. And this is based on upsides can usually harm manufacturing networks more than downsides. Upstream improvements can have many downstream bottlenecks. And with the goal as being overall optimal productivity, it is essential to incorporate both in your manufacturing strategy. There are also technical advances. The ultimate goals are enhancing yield of your product. For example, with monoclonal antibody production, currently most plants are designed to produce less than 1 gram per liter of monoclonal antibody. However, most plants currently average between 3 and 6 grams of monoclonal antibody production, with some even approaching 10 grams per liter. And these changes, or an increase in yields, can have domino effects, such as an increase in productivity results in the need for increased purification, which leads to increased storage, which can lead to increased packaging, increased transportation, and increased marketing. So any change that you make in your manufacturing strategy is not unilateral. Another issue where pipeline capacity is an important part of manufacturing strategy is in late-stage clinical material development at commercial manufacturing facilities. Before phase 3 studies, biologicals need to be produced in large scale. And because of regulatory requirements, there is a desire to make phase 3 products in a commercial launch equivalent site. However, the time and quantity drivers are different than in the initial research and development site, but the overall manufacturing optimization issues remain the same. Manufacturing needs to consider not only quantity, but drug product purity, packaging, and supporting analytical and quality control requirements. As a result, you need to have a flexible manufacturing network which can be built around partnerships and contract manufacturing organizations. As a result of globalization, in the future, we are likely to see fewer mega biomanufacturing sites and more regional sites for market access. This would allow for process intensification, smaller, more flexible facilities, and a reduction in costs by manufacturing within the region. There are also technical changes associated with these global emerging markets. There are comparable major supply sites in Asia, the Middle East, North and South Americas, and within the European markets. Part of the globalization of the biomanufacturing and biopharmaceutical sector are changing patterns in international demand. Globally, the emergence of middle and upper classes in developing countries is expected to dramatically shift market concentrations. In 2015, over 460 million individuals in Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, the Russian Federation, South Africa, and Turkey moved from poverty into the middle class. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development concluded that over the next coming decades, Asia's emerging middle class was large enough to become one of the primary drivers in the global economy. This expected shift in demand may well disrupt existing supply chains. Since 1950, we've been observing a steady increase in the world urban population. In 1950, the world urban population was approximately 0.7 billion individuals. It is projected that by 2050, this will be 6.3 billion. And the region most affected will be the increase in Asian and African populations. Diversification of product categories will be another trend for the future of biomanufacturing. While monoclonal antibody processing has become fairly standardized and has achieved consistency, in the very near future, not all biotech new products would be the traditional monoclonal antibodies. There will be fragmented monoclonal antibodies, antibody-drug conjugates, polyclonal antibodies, peptides, oligonucleotides, and drugs which target specific pathways for personalized medications. Thus, there will be a need for new manufacturing paradigms and new characterization technologies. For future product diversification in terms of biologics, monoclonal antibodies will remain the primary production of biologics, followed by vaccines, recombinant proteins, biologics for cell therapy, for gene therapy, and for antisense therapy. What are the technologic solutions for these future trends? So what would the facility of the future look like? These facilities will be smaller, more focused on markets. As market demand decreases and titer or yields increase, batch sizes can also decrease. Flexibility must increase. Again, this can be achieved with disposables. Efficiency must increase, and downstream processes must improve. These facilities will need to be more flexible, standardized, and modular. They will use platform processes or simpler processes which are less unique, with the appropriate automation. They will need to balance flexibility with consistency, again achieved with single-use or disposable processing. Single-use bioprocessing equipment is providing the biopharmaceutical industry with cost-effectiveness and flexibility. Greater flexibility in terms of purchasing, shipping, storing, and installation of complete manufacturing systems as needed. This also reduces the cost of manufacturing. There is no requirement to steam, clean, or sterilize equipment. The equipment is cheaper, basically plastics versus stainless. Waste management. The cost to incinerate disposables is a fraction of the production cost and wastewater treatment. More than 68% of companies report current in-house use of single-use bioreactors. However, currently, no mainstream biopharmaceutical product is manufactured using single-use disposable equipment. As we move to the future, there will be a changing face of biotech drug facilities. Currently, conventional plants are large, single-product dedicated facilities. They're built for blockbuster drug production. They're inflexible. They have a fixed pipeline. They're costly to modify. They produce few products, but they produce them at large volumes. In the future, these plants will have lower capital cost, lower operating cost, because they will be using disposable products that will provide added flexibility. They'll be able to produce multiple products with smaller volume. Here we show an example of trend in biomanufacturing, i.e. the use of single-use or disposables. On the right, we see the stainless steel bioreactor that's traditionally used versus the single-use disposable bioreactor. Another future trend for biomanufacturing will be network flexibility. The new trend in the contract manufacturing organization is termed the Trusted Partner Network. This is a flexible manufacturing network. It is a shared capacity to better balance the demand curve. While it still is a contract manufacturing organization, the Trusted Partner Network has a closer relationship with the biopharmaceutical company than a traditional CMO. This Trusted Partner Network builds on manufacturing capacity sharing model. This is a relationship built on trust and transparency. A capacity consortium sharing available manufacturing capacity is enabled by a facility and process similarities. The partnership is across a portfolio of programs rather than a single product agreement. It is an open book capacity requirements for a small network of partners. Biosimilars may offer broader portfolios for entry into a multi-product manufacturing collaboration. There are business benefits to this relationship: financially responsible use of available capacity, hedging pipeline risk across a broader portfolio of opportunities. It defers the expense for capital. The use of these trusted partner networks allows one to maintain high quality while reducing the cost of manufacturing goods. Cost containment and reduction will always be important for the continued business success. However, the industry requires 100% reliable quality as the foundation for the survival of its business. In order to determine the cost of the goods manufactured, there are two main categories: functional and behavioral. In terms of functional, the cost of the product can be divided into four primary categories: the product, its marketing, research and development, and administration. Within the product category, this is divided into manufacturing overhead, which can include the facilities and the equipment, electricity, utilities, labor, and the materials. There are behavioral. There are variable and fixed cost. Many of the materials and labor can be variable. The electricity, the facilities, all these things can be variable. There are other things which are fixed: administrative cost, marketing cost, and research and development cost. In past lectures, we discussed the use of contract manufacturing organizations. So in the context here for the future trends of biomanufacturing, how is there cost containment by using a contract manufacturing organization? This example shows the hypothetical launch cost if, in the one scenario, the product originator builds, starts up, and validates a new biopharmaceutical facility, and compares that to a second scenario where the product originator utilizes an existing contract manufacturing organization for the same product. The theoretical cost for a new facility includes the new staff, their training, quantification, validation, and related cost to the time of beneficial occupancy. The major cost differences between building a single-user facility and using a multi-user CMO is the fee-for-service basis. So for future trends for biomanufacturing, one would foresee a greater outsourcing of analytical testing and fill-finish operations. Outsourcing budgets will continue to rise. 31% of contract manufacturing organizations indicate that their organizations will be experiencing severe or significant constraints within the next 5 years. Contract manufacturing organizations' capacity is less important than relationship concerns. One of the least important factors when evaluating a contract manufacturing organization is their geography. Currently, among biopharmaceutical companies, almost 22% noted that being local is important. The globalization of the biopharmaceutical industry, the ability to communicate virtually, along with improvements in product management, and the internationalization of the CMO's staff have made locality of the CMO unimportant. Biosimilars will be a new and lucrative revenue source for these CMOs. And CMOs will lead in the innovation. Currently, CMOs manufacturing most biosimilars or biobetters are already utilizing advanced expression systems and improved bioprocessing systems to lower their cost and meet demands more efficiently. It has been widely recognized that the therapeutic biologics have become a new but extremely important form of medications. They provide not only a new class of therapeutics for those drugs previously treated with small molecule drugs, but also a novel treatment for those previously untreatable diseases. The global biopharmaceutical market is forecast to experience an increase of approximately 11.8% by 2018 and could reach $344 billion, accounting for approximately 27% of the total global pharmaceutical market. Of the forecasted global pharmaceutical market, the fastest growth sector is expected to be therapeutic antibodies, which is forecasted to reach $120 billion by 2018, representing an increase of 14%. Driven by the fast growth of the global pharmaceutical market, the demand for biomanufacturing outsourcing services is expected to rapidly increase. So how is it expected that we will meet this rapidly increasing demand for outsourcing? Well, one pathway will be manufacturing offshoring. Offshoring for biologics has been generally equated with the emerging of Asia, especially Singapore, China, India, and Korea. This trend is changing as domestic CMOs focus on being able to meet full US and European GMP standards in order to be allowed to manufacture commercial products for those markets. Biotherapeutic developers are also more comfortable offshoring to established markets, the US and Europe. In terms of outsourcing destinations that are the most cited as at least possible for outsourcing within the next 5 years, the leading markets are the US, Germany, Singapore, and the United Kingdom. Asian biopharmaceutical companies are targeting the production of affordable biologics by manufacturing these products locally to international quality standards. Their primary goal is to manufacture biologics to meet highly regulated markets outside of China. However, to date, no Chinese biologic product has been approved for marketing in the highly regulated markets of the US or Europe.